Marcus Rivers had driven this route 100 times before. It was just another late-night delivery, another run through quiet suburban streets where the only sounds were the hum of his truck's engine and the occasional flicker of streetlights overhead. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. It kept food on the table. And tonight, it was more important than ever. The cargo in the back of his truck wasn't just another shipment. It was a crate of rare, life-saving medication, the kind that didn't sit on pharmacy shelves, the kind that had to be delivered within hours or it would be too late. Someone was waiting for it, a little girl just 6 years old, lying in a hospital bed at St. Mary's. Her condition had taken a sharp turn for the worse that afternoon, and now the doctors were running out of options. The medication had to be there. No excuses. Marcus wasn't worried about the delivery. He knew the streets, knew the hospital, knew exactly how long it would take to get there. What he didn't expect was the red and blue lights flashing in his rearview mirror. His stomach tightened. He checked his speed. He wasn't speeding. The truck was in perfect working order. No broken taillights. No reason at all to be pulled over. Except, of course, for the one reason that had nothing to do with the truck at all. The patrol car edged closer, sirens off but lights flashing, and Marcus knew there was no way out of this. He signaled, pulled to the curb, and let out a slow breath as the officer stepped out. The man walked toward the driver's side, taking his time, his hand hovering near his belt. The knock on the window was sharp, impatient. Marcus rolled it down. License and registration. The voice was clipped firm, no greeting, no explanation. Marcus reached for his documents, keeping his movements deliberate. No sudden gestures, no reason to escalate. He handed them over, watching as the officer, Brett Collins, according to the name tag, scanned them without looking up. "This your truck?" Collins asked. "Yes, sir." "What are you doing out here this late?" Marcus hesitated. He could say it. He could explain about the hospital, the little girl, the urgency, but something in Collins' face told him it wouldn't matter. He had seen that look before. "Just making a delivery," Marcus said instead. Collins didn't respond. He stepped back, walking toward the rear of the truck, shining his flashlight over the plates. A second patrol car pulled up, another officer stepping out. This was getting worse. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus swallowed hard. He had done nothing wrong. Nothing. But he knew better than to argue. The moment his feet touched the pavement, Collins was on him. A pat-down. Questions. Where was he coming from? Where was he going? What was in the truck? Who did he work for? He answered every question, but each response was met with suspicion, as if he were trying to hide something, as if the truth wasn't enough. One of the officers climbed into the truck, rifling through the paperwork. Another yanked open the back, inspecting the crates inside. "What's in these?" Collins asked. "Medical supplies," Marcus answered. "I have the invoice in the front seat." Collins didn't move. He didn't check the invoice. He just stood there, looking at Marcus like he was still waiting for the real answer. Minutes passed. Precious minutes. At St. Mary's, Dr. Sarah Mitchell glanced at the clock. The medicine should have arrived by now. The girl's vitals were dropping, her body struggling to hold on. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. Sarah grabbed her phone, dialing the number for the courier service. The dispatcher picked up, sounding distracted. "The driver left the warehouse an hour ago," the dispatcher said. "Then where is he?" Sarah pressed. A pause. "Then, let me check." Sarah's hands tightened into fists. Something was wrong. Collins was still asking questions when his radio crackled to life. "All units, be advised. St. Mary's Hospital reporting delayed delivery of critical medication. Urgent priority." The officers exchanged a look. Collins hesitated, glancing at Marcus, then at the crates, then back at the radio. Marcus knew what was happening. Knew that for the first time since this entire thing started, Collins was questioning himself. He didn't wait. "You need to let me go," Marcus said, voice steady. "That medicine is for a child who won't survive the night without it." Collins didn't move. The second officer stepped closer. "Sir, we need to verify." "There's no time," Marcus snapped. Silence. Then the radio crackled again, a different voice this time. "This is St. Mary's. Patient is unstable. Medication is time-sensitive. If it's not here in 10 minutes, she won't make it." Collins' grip on his flashlight tightened. Marcus could see it happening. The hesitation, the realization, the weight of what was unfolding. Then, finally, Collins stepped back. He tossed the paperwork onto the hood of the truck and spoke into his radio. Unit 42, escorting delivery truck to St. Mary's. Clear the route. Marcus didn't wait for another word. He climbed back into the truck, slammed it into gear, and floored it. Behind him, the patrol cars followed, sirens blaring. There were no more stops, no more questions, no more wasted time, just the race against the clock. The hospital doors swung open. The second, Marcus pulled up to the emergency bay. Nurses and doctors rushed forward, wheeling a gurney toward the entrance, eyes darting toward the truck. He barely had time to put it in park before the back doors were yanked open. Hands reached in, grabbed the crate, and sprinted toward the doors. Dr. Sarah Mitchell didn't stop to thank him. She didn't have time. She ran alongside the team as they rushed through the corridor, barking orders to prep the medication. The girl's vitals had dropped to a dangerous level. If they didn't act immediately, this would be over. Inside the pediatric ICU, a group of doctors hovered around the tiny figure in the bed. Her mother stood in the corner, gripping a small stuffed bear, whispering prayers under her breath. A nurse tore the crate open, hands flying through the packaging, searching for the vials. The lead physician was already at the IV line, ready to administer the dose. 5 minutes later, the medication was flowing into the girl's veins. Now it was a waiting game. Marcus stood outside the glass doors, watching, pulse still racing from the drive. His hands tightened into fists, the weight of the past hour sinking in. Behind him, Officer Collins stood stiffly, arms crossed. The other officer had already disappeared, but Collins remained, eyes locked on the scene unfolding inside. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. A woman's voice broke through the tension. "Who do I thank for this?" Marcus turned to see the girl's mother staring at them, eyes red but filled with something new, hope. Before he could answer, Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. "Him." She pointed at Marcus. "If he hadn't gotten here in time, we'd be having a very different conversation right now." Collins shifted. Marcus met his gaze, waiting for something, an apology, an acknowledgement, anything, but the officer stayed silent. He nodded once, turned on his heel, and walked away. Marcus exhaled. It wasn't enough. It never would be. But right now, the only thing that mattered was behind that glass. Seconds ticked by. The girl's breathing steadied. The heart monitor's erratic beeping slowed. Then, finally, the doctor turned to the mother and gave a small, knowing nod. The mother let out a sob, pressing her hands to her mouth. Marcus closed his eyes. It wasn't just a delivery. It was a life. Marcus left the hospital with the weight of the night still pressing on him. The urgency, the confrontation, the near disaster, it all swirled in his mind. He should have felt relief, knowing the little girl had made it, that the medication had arrived in time. But something kept gnawing at him. It wasn't the first time. He had been pulled over before, stopped, questioned, treated like he didn't belong in the neighborhoods where his deliveries took him. He knew the script by heart. Tonight was different, though. This time, a life had been hanging in the balance, and that stop could have cost everything. As he climbed into his truck, his phone buzzed. A text from his dispatcher. "Call me when you're clear." Marcus dialed. "You all right?" The voice on the other end was laced with concern. "Yeah," he exhaled. "Made the delivery. Just barely." There was a pause. Then, "I heard what happened." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Collins?" "Yeah, word travels fast." The dispatcher hesitated. "He's got a history." Marcus stared at the dashboard, fingers drumming against the steering wheel. He wasn't surprised. But knowing this officer had done it before, and would probably do it again, made something in his chest tighten. "Look," the dispatcher said, "you don't have to deal with this. I can reroute you, keep you off his radar." Marcus shook his head. "That's not the point." Silence stretched between them. The dispatcher got it. They both knew this wasn't just about one stop. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "No." Another pause. Then a resigned sigh. "Be careful." Marcus hung up. The next morning, he filed the complaint. It was a long process, too long. Paperwork, interviews, statements. Every question felt like a trap, designed to poke holes in his experience, to make it seem less than what it was. Did he use excessive force? No. Did he threaten you? Not in so many words. Then what exactly are you alleging? Marcus kept his voice even, that he made a decision based on nothing but my skin and the assumption that I didn't belong. The officer across from him scribbled something down. "Do you have proof?" Marcus inhaled slowly. "Isn't that your job?" The man didn't respond. 2 weeks passed. No updates. No response. Nothing. Marcus wasn't surprised. Then one afternoon, his phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't the dispatcher, it was Collins. Need to talk. Now. Marcus stared at the message. 100 different thoughts ran through his head, but one thing was clear. Collins wasn't happy. He debated ignoring it. Let the complaint sit. Let it work its way through the system, however broken that system was. But something told him this conversation needed to happen. So he sent back one word. Where? 10 minutes later, he was parked in an empty lot near an old diner, watching as Collins' patrol car pulled up. The officer stepped out, walking toward him with the same stiff posture as before, but this time, his expression wasn't unreadable. It was tight, controlled. I saw your complaint, Marcus nodded. Collins exhaled sharply. You trying to ruin my career? Marcus studied him. The frustration, the barely contained anger, the complete lack of accountability. You almost ruined a life, Marcus said. Collins scoffed. Come on, man. It wasn't like that. Marcus tilted his head. Then what was it like? The officer hesitated. That's what I thought, Marcus said. Collins shifted, glancing at the ground. Look, I didn't know about the delivery. That's the problem, Marcus shot back. You didn't need to know. You saw me, you saw the truck, and you made up your mind before I even rolled the window down. Collins rubbed a hand over his face. You think I did it on purpose? I think it doesn't matter. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Collins sighed. They're making me take a training course, sensitivity training. Marcus let out a dry laugh. That's supposed to fix this? Collins didn't answer. Marcus stepped closer. Let me tell you how this ends. You take the training, you sit through the lectures, you check the box, and nothing changes, because you don't want it to. Collins's jaw tightened. Marcus took a breath. But one day, it's going to be someone else, and next time, there might not be a second chance. The officer looked away. For the first time, there was something in his face Marcus hadn't seen before. Not regret, not an apology, but maybe, just maybe, a sliver of doubt. Neither of them spoke. Then Collins nodded once, turned, and walked back to his car. Marcus watched him go, wondering if anything had actually changed. Marcus didn't expect anything to come from the complaint. He had seen it happen too many times before. Paperwork disappearing into some bureaucratic void, officers getting nothing more than a slap on the wrist before going back to the same patterns. But something about that meeting in the parking lot stayed with him. Collins had looked shaken, thrown off balance in a way Marcus hadn't seen before. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was just self-preservation. Either way, Marcus knew one thing. He couldn't wait around for the system to fix itself. So he started talking. At first, it was just with other delivery drivers, people who had their own stories. Some had been pulled over for no reason. Others questioned in neighborhoods where they were just doing their jobs. Everyone had a version of the same experience, the same exhaustion, the same quiet acceptance that this was just how things were. But Marcus wasn't interested in acceptance. One conversation turned into 5. 5 turned into 20. Before long, Marcus was sitting in a small, packed room at a local community center, surrounded by people who had been through what he had. Some were delivery workers like him. Others were nurses, teachers, business owners, people who had worked too hard to still be treated like they didn't belong. We can file complaints all day, someone said, arms crossed. They don't go anywhere. Marcus leaned forward. Then we stop playing by their rules. That got their attention. We start tracking this ourselves. Marcus continued. Dates, times, locations. We document everything. We put pressure where they can't ignore it. They want to pretend it's not happening? We show them they're wrong. It was the kind of idea that could fizzle out if no one acted on it. But Marcus wasn't letting this one die. He set up an online tracker where people could submit reports, mapped out hotspots where stops kept happening, pushed for local news outlets to start paying attention. And it worked. Slowly, reports stopped getting buried. Officers started watching their steps. Complaints that had once disappeared into silence now had eyes on them. Then Collins called. I need to meet. Marcus debated ignoring him. He owed this man nothing. But curiosity got the better of him. They met in a diner this time. No empty lots. No confrontations. Just a corner booth, a pot of coffee, and a conversation Marcus wasn't sure he wanted to have. Collins looked different. The usual stiffness was gone. He looked like a man carrying something heavier than he knew what to do with. Marcus let the silence stretch. He wasn't offering an easy way in. Finally, Collins spoke. I screwed up. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Which time? Collins let out a humorless laugh. Yeah, fair question. He took a sip of coffee, staring at the table like he was trying to figure out how much to say. I took the training. And? Collins sighed. And it was a joke. They had us watch a couple videos, fill out some worksheets. Nobody cared. Half the guys made fun of it. He shook his head. But it got me thinking about patterns, about things I've done, things I didn't even question before. Marcus studied him. He wasn't sure if he believed him. Collins exhaled. I looked up my stop records. Marcus leaned in slightly. It's bad, Collins admitted. Really bad. And not just me. There are guys who have way worse numbers than I do, but nobody's watching them. Marcus folded his arms. Why are you telling me this? Collins hesitated. Because I don't want to be that guy anymore. Marcus didn't respond right away. He had spent his whole life watching people say the right thing when they were backed into a corner, only to go right back to who they were once the heat was off. But there was something about the way Collins said it, something that didn't sound rehearsed. What do you want me to do with this? Marcus asked. Collins sat back. Whatever you want. Marcus narrowed his eyes. You're serious? I have the records, Collins said. I can get you data, not just from me, but from officers who have been doing this for years and getting away with it. He met Marcus's gaze. I don't expect you to trust me, but if you want to change something, I can help. Marcus let the words settle. If Collins was lying, this was a dangerous game. But if he was telling the truth, this could be bigger than a complaint, bigger than one conversation in a parking lot. This could be proof. Marcus wasn't naive. He knew when something sounded too good to be true. Collins offering him proof, real, hard numbers, felt like a setup. A way to make him slip up, look like the one who was stirring trouble. Maybe even give them an excuse to pin something on him. But he also knew what it felt like when a door cracked open. And if he didn't walk through, nothing would change. So he did his research, looked into Collins's record, talked to people who knew him. The guy wasn't spotless, but he wasn't a dirty cop either. Just one of those officers who did what he was trained to do, never questioning if the training itself was broken. Until now. So Marcus took a chance. Collins handed over the data, weeks' worth of stop records, arrest patterns, internal memos that had been quietly passed around the department. The numbers didn't lie. They showed how entire sections of the city had been targeted. How the same officers made the same stops over and over again, rarely leading to arrests, but always leading to intimidation. Collins hadn't been the worst of them, not by a long shot. I don't know how I never saw it, he admitted. Marcus did. It was easy to ignore a pattern when you were part of it, when it benefited you. But now wasn't the time to preach. Instead, he worked. The community tracker that started as a quiet initiative blew up overnight. Local activists got involved. Lawyers took notice. Journalists started making calls. One of them, a reporter from a small but fearless publication, reached out to Marcus directly. This is bigger than you think, she said. You need to be careful. He already knew that. Collins, for his part, kept his head down. If his fellow officers suspected him of leaking anything, they hadn't said it outright. But he felt it. The sideways glances, the quiet shifts in conversation when he entered the room. They knew something was happening. Then the department got wind of the tracker. It didn't take long for the pushback to start. A statement was released, full of vague reassurances. Community concerns were being heard. Investigations were ongoing. Officers had been reminded to uphold their duty with fairness and integrity. Marcus read it and almost laughed. They were stalling. And then the threats came. Anonymous messages warning him to back off. Calls in the middle of the night that hung up the second he answered. His car, once parked in front of his apartment, mysteriously towed without a ticket or explanation. He was being watched. Collins warned him. They want you scared, he said. They think if they shake you hard enough, you'll let it go. Marcus clenched his jaw. They're wrong. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the delivery drivers who'd been harassed for doing their jobs, the high school kids who'd been stopped for walking home too late, the families who had to coach their children through conversations they shouldn't have to have. He wasn't letting this go, so he went public. The tracker's data was released in full. Numbers, dates, officer IDs, a breakdown of who was responsible for the highest number of unnecessary stops. Colin's name was on the list. Marcus gave him a heads up before it dropped. "I'm not asking for a pass," Colin said. Marcus nodded. That was the only reason he still trusted him. The fallout was immediate. The police department scrambled. The mayor's office issued a statement. News crews showed up at City Hall. For the first time, the people who had been ignored, dismissed, or silenced had undeniable proof in their hands. And suddenly, the same officers who had operated without fear were looking over their shoulders. The pressure mounted fast. The department couldn't ignore the backlash. Officers were suddenly under review. City council members were forced to respond, and the police chief, once comfortable in his position, was backed into a corner. Calls for accountability were no longer whispers. They were shouted at town halls, blasted across news stations, written in op-eds. And through it all, Marcus stayed steady. He kept showing up. He spoke at meetings, shared stories, put faces to the numbers. The statistics weren't abstract anymore. They belonged to real people with names, families, and lives that had been disrupted, sometimes shattered, because of a system designed to see them as suspects first. The pushback got uglier. A smear campaign against Marcus started to surface. Accusations, half-truths, attempts to discredit him. Someone leaked his old juvenile record, twisting his past into a weapon against him. Headlines painted him as an agitator, a troublemaker looking for revenge instead of justice. Collins saw the writing on the wall before Marcus did. "They're coming for you," he warned. Marcus nodded. "Let them." Because the truth was already out. And then the unthinkable happened. The police chief resigned. No drawn-out press conferences, no performative speeches about change. Just a statement acknowledging the failure of leadership and a swift exit. It was the first domino. Policies were rewritten. Officers with the worst records were either forced out or put through serious, mandatory retraining. The city launched a new oversight board, this time with actual power. And Marcus? He kept going. The tracker turned into something bigger, an independent watchdog group run by the community, for the community. What started as a handful of people in a room now had lawyers, data analysts, and organizers working together. Collins left the force. He wasn't fired, wasn't pushed out. He made the choice himself. Walked into the captain's office, handed in his badge, and walked away from everything he had known. Marcus heard about it from a mutual connection, then got a call from Collins himself. "I'm out," Collins said, "and I want to help." Marcus wasn't sure if he was surprised or not. They met at the same diner, in the same booth where they had their first real conversation. But this time, the energy was different. There was no tension, no lingering wariness. Collins told him he had spent months reevaluating everything. The job, the system, the way he had contributed to it. He had thought about staying and trying to fix things from the inside. But in the end, he couldn't justify it. "I let a broken system shape me," he admitted. "I don't want to be part of it anymore. I want to be part of what you're building instead." Marcus studied him. He had been let down too many times before, seen too many people talk a big game when the pressure was on, only to slip back into comfort when things cooled down. But Collins looked different. So Marcus nodded, and just like that, they started working together. Months passed. The city was still the city. No overnight miracles, no illusions that everything was fixed. But things were different. The numbers didn't lie. Stops had gone down. Complaints were being taken seriously. And people who once felt powerless were finally seeing the results of their fight. Marcus was sitting on his porch one evening when a car pulled up in front of his building. A delivery driver stepped out, a kid who couldn't have been more than 20. He grabbed a package from his backseat, then hesitated. "I just wanted to say thanks," the kid said. "I don't know if it's because of what y'all did, but it's been different out here. Better." Marcus just nodded. That was enough. Because this fight was never about tearing things down just to watch them burn. It was about building something better. And for the first time, he believed they actually could. This story is a testament to the power of accountability and the courage it takes to challenge a broken system. It reminds us that change doesn't come from silence. It comes from persistence, from refusing to accept injustice as the norm. Marcus fought not just for himself, but for his community. proving that truth, once revealed, cannot be ignored. Colin's journey shows that growth is possible, that acknowledging past mistakes is the first step toward meaningful action. Real change is slow, messy, and met with resistance, but when people stand together, it becomes unstoppable. Thank you for being part of this journey. Your support means everything. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters, and every conversation helps create awareness and change. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more impactful stories that inspire and challenge the way we see the world. Together, we can keep these important discussions alive. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.